Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And it's interesting because I remember back on Friday's show, I said point blank, I thought that the team that had the most at stake on Saturday was actually Texas A&M. Now, Oregon, Washington, bigger game, right? But either of those teams can lose. They can still win the Pac-12, make the college football playoff. USC, I know it was a debacle, but they can still win the Pac-12, go to the college football playoff. Texas A&M was going to go down one of two very unique, divergent roads with the game against Tennessee on Saturday. They were either going to win, and then you could sit there and say, well, wait a second. They just won on the road at Tennessee against a ranked team. The Alabama thing, maybe Alabama's just really good and getting better. You're still in position to win 10 games. You're still in position to even potentially win the SEC West if things get weird with Alabama. If you lose, though, then it means that you're 4-3. It means you have 2 SEC losses. You're not winning the West. You're on a 2-game losing streak going into the bye. And realistically, you still have LSU on the road and Ole Miss on the road, and you're probably looking at 7-5, and that simply isn't good enough given the talent on this roster. Well, Saturday, the game happened in Knoxville, and it was largely not very good. And we'll talk about Tennessee in a minute, but it was an ugly, sloppy, wild, weird, bad game. And Texas A&M lost 20-13 in what can only be described as a debacle for Texas A&M. And so I know there were external forces. We're going to get into some of them that led to the loss. It wasn't all on the head coach. But I don't know how you can look at this program right now at this moment in time and say that they're in the right place. And again, it's not all on Jimbo Fisher, but man, oh man, oh man, as a guy who has defended him for years, it is so obvious that he is the problem, not the solution to what's going on at Texas A&M. And before we get into the A&M aspect of things, let me say a couple things. One, I want to give credit to Tennessee, okay? Because I know we're going to have Tennessee fans that watch this or listen to this and say, oh, Torres, you never give us credit for anything. And like, I get it. And what I would say, I think Josh Heupel is doing one of the best coaching jobs in college football. Because ultimately, listen, I'm not a scheme guy. I haven't sat in all those meetings, okay? But part of coaching, and we've talked about this a lot with Nick Saban this year, it's playing to strengths and weaknesses of your team and your specific personnel in any given year. Well, Josh Heupel a year ago had a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback in Hendon Hooker. Should have been in New York. I'm still mad about that. And he threw the ball all over the field. The offense was incredible. This year, you're not getting the same production at quarterback, and they have turned into a run and defense-based team. We talked about it on Friday's show. Tennessee had I believe, the #1 rush offense in the SEC, and I think the #2 total defense or something like that. I can't remember all the details, but they ran the ball really effectively on Saturday. The defense is really good, and this is going to win them a lot of games. Now, the schedule doesn't get easier. They got Bama this week. They got Georgia in a couple weeks, but I think Josh Heupel is doing as good a job as anybody in college football, given the personnel that he has. And it's also worth noting from the A&M perspective, they're dealing with a ton of injuries, and I know that everybody has injuries, but you lose your starting quarterback, Connor Wigman, 2-3 weeks ago, and Max Johnson just clearly isn't the guy. Not a disrespect. It's not anything, whatever, but it's just obvious if you watch that team that, like, he's just not good enough to win high-level SEC games. Beyond that, you lose 2 of, I would argue, not just the best defensive players on your roster, but 2 of the best players in maybe college football in Edgerrin Cooper and Walter Nolan. As I record, we don't know the status, so I don't want to speculate too much. You hope they're okay, and I'm not a doctor, but you hope they're okay, but you don't know, okay? So all of this is true. Tennessee might just be better than we think. Heupel's doing a great job. And Texas A&M has certainly dealt with adversity. But at a certain point, it can't always be excuses, and it can't always be the reason that you lose big games that matter. And the thing is, this isn't a one-weekend thing. This isn't even a one-year thing. This is now year 6, and this is who Jimbo Fisher's program is. Win games, don't win enough of the big ones and the ones that matter. Listen, don't let me skew your opinion, because I still think there are a couple people that'll sit there and say, well, there's injuries. It's not Jimbo. Don't blame him, whatever. Let me just read you some straight facts about Jimbo, okay? This is now year 6. These stats are incredible, okay? Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher, 43-24. Doesn't sound that bad. 25-20 now in the SEC, barely above 500 at SEC play. Since the start of last year, 9-10 overall, 4-8 in 12 SEC games. So in the last 19 games, 9-10, 4-8. And here are the craziest stats, the stats that blew me away, the stats that I did not know until I was coming into this weekend. Did you know that Texas A&M has now lost 8 straight road games? 8 straight road games dating back to the 2021 season. It's been over 2 calendar years since they won a game in a true road environment. And this stat really blew me away. Since Jimbo Fisher took over, Texas A&M is 0-9 in SEC road games against ranked teams. So if you want to sit there and say, yeah, he's getting paid a lot of money, $9 million. Not everybody's going to win the national championship. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, you can't win one big game away from College Station. 0-9 against ranked teams over his entire tenure in true road games. 0-8, 8 straight losses in the SEC, 8 straight road games in losses, 8 straight road losses. I'm tripping over my words because it's so unbelievable. And so when I look at this whole thing, it's impossible at this point to say it's anything other than Jimbo. And I'm the guy that's largely defended Jimbo. Give him time. Get him an offensive coordinator. Let the recruits get older. Like at some point, it can't always be about excuses. And even with the injuries this year, it can't always be about, well, next year when we get healthy. At some point, you have to acknowledge who you are. And this just isn't a very good program right now. And when I think about this whole situation with Texas A&M, there's a couple things that are especially disappointing, okay? One, I actually saw this from The Athletic, and I want to give credit to Sam Kahn, who covers I think Texas college football. He's in Texas, so he does A&M, UT, TCU, whatever. He said this: Jimbo Fisher coaches in the market. I think this is the most frustrating part, right? Is that Jimbo Fisher right now is coaching kind of in the market. He's coaching almost as if he has the less talented team, and it's field position and it's defense and it's hope for good stuff, right? He's coaching like he's at Iowa. He's coaching like he's at Iowa State. He is not coaching like he has one of the most talented rosters in college football. Remember, 2 weeks ago against Alabama, had the chance, get some points before halftime, let the clock run out, didn't use timeouts. Did the same thing on Saturday against Tennessee. On the road, it's clear Tennessee does not trust their quarterback. Stop the clock, get the ball back, try and get points. Instead, lets the clock run out, and here's the crazy part. Last 2 weeks, 3 total points in the second half against Bama and against Tennessee. And oh, by the way, there was also the punt last week. We talked about that at the time. If people want to defend the punt, it was the right decision. Okay. And so it goes back to what we talked about with Dane Lanning earlier. Like, it's one thing if you trust your guys, if you believe in them, if you let them go out and it just doesn't work. It's yet another when you don't trust them and you don't put them in position to succeed. You have talent everywhere. I know there's injuries. But where is Evan Stewart? Where is Noah? Like, why are you not getting the, like, how does this happen? How does it happen? I heard Gary Danielson say this, right? Anaya Smith on Saturday, maybe their best wide receiver, 1 catch for 20 yards. And Brad Nessler said to him, he said, well, maybe Tennessee's done a good job of taking Anaya Smith out of this game. And you know what Gary Danielson said? He said, I watched Stanford go to the same wide receiver 9 straight times against Colorado. If the player's good enough, you put the ball in his hands and you figure it out. So I don't know if it's a Bobby Petrino thing. I don't know if Jimbo Fisher's taken back play calling, but whatever it is, you're in position. You got the dudes to do it. Go let them do it. And then beyond that, you know what's especially frustrating? It's what we talked about last week. Again, not an X's and O's guy. I'm not Bill Belichick on the whiteboard, okay? But even a dude like me can see when a team is well coached and when they're not. Watch these games. Go back to last week, the red zone. Remember, they were down 2 scores, needed 2 scores. They botched the clock, take a timeout, come out of a timeout to kick a field goal just to kick it off. And then, oh, by the way, they can kick it deep. They have enough time, and they end up going onside, okay? So you have last week. This week, a crucial third down, a third down that you need a stop to get Tennessee off the field and get the ball back. Guys are out of position. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're running the wrong directions. What are we doing? You can see it. All you have to do is watch the games. They're not well coached and they're not being put in position to win. And so with A&M, I don't know what the solution is, because look, we could talk about it, but that contract, he's not getting fired this year. And so I don't know what you do. You tried to fix the offense with Petrino. I'm not going to blame Petrino, because I've seen what a Bobby Petrino offense looks like, and he really does just put the ball in guys' hands and let them make plays. Whether it's Lamar Jackson, whether it's the deep passing game at Arkansas, whatever it is, Petrino lets his guys make plays. And so I don't know, I guess my question is, what can you do to get any excitement going forward with this program? I guess you could finish out strong this year, but why? What is there to think that you're going to go outscore LSU and Baton Rouge? They just put up 48 against Auburn on Saturday. That ain't happening. You're not beating Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin loves rubbing Jimbo Fisher's face in the dirt. And so it's just so frustrating, because I don't know what the answer is. You brought in Bobby Petrino. You tried to fix the offense. It's not fixed. And so listen, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, the only other thing that I can really say is I was just dead wrong on Jimbo, right? Is that, I was the guy that has tried to defend him for years, and we'll get out of here on this, but I've tried to defend the guy for years, and I'll say, really thought, give him time, let the players get older, get him in offensive court. It's the same thing over and over. And so for years, people have said, well, he rode Jameis Winston to a national title. It's hard not to say it at that point, right? Because remember, he was at Florida State before Clemson really got going. So he had the best player in college football in Jameis Winston, by far the most talent on his team in the conference. And it is worth noting, and it's interesting, I was at the game. When Florida State beat Auburn, it was the last year of the BCS. So he didn't have to go through a Georgia and a Michigan to win the national championship, or a Michigan and an Alabama, or whatever. He got one game, won a national championship, and he'll forever be a national championship winning head coach. But he is not that guy. Texas A&M hasn't gotten him, and it's hard for me to have excitement about this program. I hope everybody gets healthy. By the way, I hope nobody really significant hits the portal, because there's still so much talent in this program. Good thing is you get a bye, you get South Carolina. There are wins on the schedule, but it's hard to see the scenario where this team comes anything close to meeting expectations with LSU and Ole Miss still on the schedule, and there's nobody to blame but Jimbo Fisher.